see depictions of Vietnam. If it's a city, it's like, all dirt roads, like, kind of nasty. I imagine that now it's probably more modernized.
I picture Vietnam as a very calm and peaceful place, very serene and placid.
Probably just a lot of rural farmers.
When I think of Vietnam, I just think of American movies about Vietnam.
I came into the trip expecting to get a sense of a country dealing with a really traumatic past, and what we found was a country trying to figure out how to move forward.
Everything has to move on, and so from a national perspective, like even after great tragedy, the people have to. Everything still has to continue.
History is so long, so we're talking thousands of years as compared to what we think of history in the United States as being a couple hundred years.
I think it's very easy to sort of conceptualize of post-conflict societies as frozen in that moment of conflict.
Every school, every country teaches their children differently about wars. I came to America and I learned about wars later in the years, but it was a completely different view. And I have a friend from Germany who told me a different story about World War. Yes, maybe somehow why it started kind of similar, but who won the war and why they won?
I think countries and people would like to forget the times when they were cruel to others or just generally very embarrassing or shameful situation.
I don't think that it's ever best to forget, but it's important to forgive, or a country cannot move on.
The one thing I can say about the people that we interacted with, at least, was that they were very hopeful.
We know that now if we try to learn, we have a chance, so I don't believe that anyone now try to flee the country like that. My neighbor, the family living just a few houses away from where I live, she got 2 sons. They fled the country and they disappeared. And I saw how ugly people, to be to each other when they try to fight for something for their family. My brother had to fight to get some for me. And so we were exhausted. We just exhausted, and then I'm happy to tell you that right now the situation is changing and we're feeling so much better. It's changing quite fast. Just a couple of years ago, the average income was still, I think, around $100 a month, and that was quite low for the people living in the city.
Vietnam is now on the way to the industrialization and modernization.
Vietnam has been one of the biggest exporters of local consumption. Vietnam is now second country. And this year Vietnam has exported altogether 6 million tons of rice. They chop bamboo into different sticks. Half of the stick is used to make incense. The other half for decoration with different color. One day she can make nearly 3,000 sticks of incense. It looks easy, but actually it's very, very hard. A couple of years ago when the economy was not so good and it was not easy to buy a motorbike. Maybe in your country you have to buy a fancy car, something. Here, you need to buy a top quality motorbike. On special occasion we offer paper US currency, including Vietnamese currency. And after each ceremony, we burn this thing, including paper clothes, including paper 7-story houses, including Harley-Davidson, Mercedes, Toyota, television, iPad, iPhone, earring, watches, everything.
In paper?
Paper. We burn.
What I see in my life is a huge transform of the city itself.
Saigon, this is already the most developed city, in the whole Vietnam. We are still, a long way behind, still very basic here.
Large corporations have a big influence in Vietnam. I think, for example, we saw a lot of Pepsi logos all over the place.
My younger sister, she's now working for Pepsi Cola. Her salary now is about 2,500 US a month. My brother now is a big company. He's do building sport like soccer stadium, running track. You go look around, you see Kentucky Fried Chicken start to be more popular. No McDonald's yet.
I hate to admit this, brother, but there are times when I'm eating fried chicken, when I think about nothing else but eating fried chicken. When I utterly forget about my family, honor, and country, the various blood debts you owe me, my past humiliations and my future crimes. Everything, in short, but the crispy skin on my fried chicken.
I became really interested in, I guess, contemporary communism in Vietnam. It didn't really strike me as a communist country.
It's interesting that Vietnam can call itself the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, and at the same time manufacture these social stratifications.
I think when we went to Saigon South and we saw that a lot of new development is clearly catering to a particular class, an upper class, I think that is contrary to the idea that I think is at the heart of communism.
If my understanding of Saigon South is correct, which said it's essentially one corporation which pretty much maintains, I think that there were a few buildings that are owned by the companies that inhabit them. But even so, the vast bulk of it is owned and maintained by one entity.
The government supervises us. We provide everything.
The plan to build a subway under the ground was already approved by the government maybe 10 years ago, and now we still haven't seen it. Not started yet.
When we first came to Ho Chi Minh City didn't have enough electric power. The highest record was 500 blackout in only 1 month. Ho Chi Minh City was overcrowded because Ho Chi Minh City was designed by the French for 400,000 people. But now the population is 20 times more. The roads were narrow. As you can see, traffic was awful.
Why the traffic? A lot of motorbike. You think you can walk across the street here?
It's not so much that they're moving forward, it's that they're jumping forward. Like, they're developing golf courses and resort houses and really nice locations without the infrastructure to maintain those locations.
The only way for it to develop is to accept all of those different cultures and things that coming in for the country.
Is there any space for organic growth?
The development takes time to form, so that allows the changes.
Overriding management have brought together about, what would you say, in about 6 or 7 architectural firms. The idea of variety, and just broadly speaking, diversity was very much on our mind to keep it more organic.
Real estate developer who's developing a very big luxury resort in Da Nang. And the only thing on the land before was a cemetery.
In my area.
Oh yeah?
4 years ago, that area was still a very big public cemetery. Actually based on Vietnamese belief. It's not good. Not to follow the state that you have to move this to another place for development. We have to follow.
Did Buddhist priests come in and they were involved?
Like to ask them for favor.
Okay.
Ask them favor for doing that. Otherwise, you will say, oh, we will not get punishment from you, etc.
This is a temple built to dedicate to the goddess of the sea goddess. They believe that her job every day is to look out, see all the prayer here, and look. You look to my right hand side, you see all many pieces of paper stuck on the wall there. Yeah, that is also so many prayer. Here is the altar for worshiping the god of earth. If they are planning to come to this area to live, they usually have to come here to report or get permission. They say something like, my name is something. I'm bringing my whole family, consists of 5 members, and we are going to live in this area. And there is the god of luck. If they start a new business, they also come and they try to hope to have luck.
Based on Vietnamese belief, death is not an end to life. And this life still exists in the world beyond.
Buddha say that life is just a sea of sorrow. So he was supposed to be the next king. But why he said no to everything, to go to the jungle, where he sat down and tried to find out a way to get out of the sea of sorrow.
Buddhism in Vietnam is quite different from that in Thai or Cambodia. About 80% of the Vietnamese people is Buddhist, but many of them have a vague notion on Buddhist doctrine, or you call Dharma.
Mahayanabuism in Vietnam is considered a giant transfer that can carry millions of people. So reincarnation, every day we do good things. So in your next life you come back, but as a better person, better life. It's possible for all people to reach enlightenment under the guidance of a dedicated teacher or bodhisattva. My mother reminded me when I was young, even some small mosquito bites me, go. Because that can be somebody. In Vietnam, apart from monks, they include a lot of novices. But it's not obligation for novices to be monks in the future.
In this pagoda, are there monks or nuns, or is it more a museum?
Here, actually monks and novices still live.
It's interesting to note that, like, while the perception of the war was really much more a perception of like a social revolution, like a lot of what we experienced was sort of performing the Vietnamese conflict with the United States for our consumption.
After when war ended in 1975, and the new government, they opened this museum, and the first name of the museum was not War Remnants Museum like today, but the first name of the museum was American Warcraft Museum. In 1995, when American normalized relation to Vietnam, and the trade embargo was lifted, together with that normalization, and the name of the museum also to be more flexible, you see, to be changed. So it's just War Remnant Museum.
First level between 2 and 3 meter deep below the soil top. The second level between 4 and 6 meter deep below the soil top. And the third level between 8 and 10 meter deep.
And it's interesting to see the size of the entrance. See how small and narrow? And the local guy here showing you the way that they did in the war. You pay attention, it's made of wood. So during the rainy season, when water go down to the tunnel, the wood would be expanded.
Wait, what am I aiming at, those things?
Yeah, one issue is that I don't know how close to the reality the physical experience was, and so I think that makes some problems. If this, what you're getting is like a running, screaming, laughing tour of the tunnels.
Each weapon is designed to kill a human body in a specific way, versus a bomb which is designed to destroy blindly a huge area.
It's psychological warfare, so dropping bombs is, I feel like it's sort of a cop-out, although it's very technologically advanced, and you do actually know your victim in a way.
I was getting a little faint in that Agent Orange room.
Yeah.
That was pretty bad.
I've been with many charity groups to go around Vietnam to make some donation to help them. And I have seen so many people like that. Under the Vietnam War, they built up a special trail there named Ho Chi Minh Trail. In order to stop this infiltration, the Southern government and US used defoliation. There were 3 different types of defoliation, such as Agent Orange, Agent White, and Agent Blue.
On the radio, there's this kind of like dubstep, like house music on, and just so happened that Dan he was dancing to it. Like, all trying to get us all to dance. So I walked away, kind of embarrassed. And I'm kind of like, I'm feeling kind of happy. Like, oh, that was cute. But as I'm walking away, I noticed someone walking by with a really bad cleft lip. It was something that very well could have been caused by the American Agent Orange. And it just like made me think, like that, that's why we're here, to figure out that.
70% of Vietnam is under the age of 30. Very few people these days, speaking statistically, actually lived through the war.
From the secondary school now, they teach, politics, an American war, French war, Japanese war. Vietnam is a country that having many wars. We were dominated by Chinese for 1,000 years, and then French came,
dominate, Vietnam together with Laos, Cambodia, and they call the whole area Indochina. The country just officially united in 1975.
So much of the story of the revolution, and specifically the piece that the Americans were involved in, was this idea of national unity and national reunification. So like we went to the Reunification Palace, which is a really huge deal in Ho Chi Minh City. And so by excluding the narrative of the South Vietnamese army from these spaces of memory, like the Cu Chi tunnels, like the Reunification Palace, like all of these other museums that we went to, what that allowed for was, by painting the Americans as the enemy moving in, it sort of obscured any animosity that might still exist between North Vietnamese and South Vietnamese people.
The founding of the country of Vietnam could be dated back to more than 2,000 years ago. By naming the country Vietnam in the 10th century, it means that the Viet people in the south, and they meant the south of China.
Vietnam was always considered a province by Chinese emperor. The reason why every 3 years Vietnamese king had to pay tribute to Chinese emperor. The first king Yala, right after having gone to the throne, he had sent his people to China to ask for the name of Nam Viet. But according to Chinese emperor, in year 179 BC, there was a little state close to China named Nam Viet. So the Chinese emperor decided to revert Nam Viet into Vietnam. The Chinese propagated their culture, tradition, language to Vietnam. The first king of the United States was the admiral of the Chinese culture. So he decided to choose Chinese language as an official reading language in Vietnam. Vietnamese language today is only one syllable. And one word we have different accent altogether, 6 different accents. A different accent had different meaning.
The French, they grouped Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia into one single territory. Thus they name it the French Indochina. A memoir to the time in December 1946, when the city of Hanoi and its people defend the city from a French attack.
Duy Tân. He became king at the age of 7. And when he was there, step by step, he had really good relationship with General de Gaulle. And he himself made a radio and recorded the information on the French Liberation Force. And according to some researchers, the French had arranged for his death. But unfortunately, this king was misunderstood by a lot of Vietnamese people due to his relation with General de Gaulle.
This tomb belonged to the 4th king, Từ Đức. It took 3 years to build this tomb.
The outside, the pho, are these sort of like icons of Vietnamese culture. You also have to take into account the models of development that are being introduced cannot be necessarily discounted from Vietnamese identities just because of the fact that they're new.
But everything here is new. The king sat in the middle on the throne. The ceiling was inlaid with ceramic chips and color clocks. So when they turned the lamp on, the reflection from the constellation would make the atmosphere lively. It said that the king was buried beneath here. All in the 20th century, the French had this one exhumed for jewel and body, but they found none.
Many people who uprising against the French during the 19th and early 20th century. Ho Chi Minh is the one who defeat the French colonists in Vietnam and brought back the name of the country. The term of North Vietnam and South Vietnam only appeared in 1955, where they say that whoever support Ho Chi Minh stay in the north, and whoever think French is a choice, come and stay in the south. And after 2 years, you can figure out that which government is the better one.
In 1954, South Vietnam was under Diem government. Diem was a Catholic president. The government was very corrupt. The government was afraid that Buddhist people would use the local radio station to criticize the government. So they sent troops to suppress Buddhist people. And as a result, 9 Buddhist people were killed. The senior monk decided to immolate himself to death. But before his immolation, he had sent letters to Diem government and to Buddhist community in South Vietnam. And in these letters, he expressed his desire to bring attention to this campaign. He went to the site with other 2 monks, and the other 2 helped him pour gas over himself. Right after arriving, he got out of the car, ignited a fire with a mat, and sat still on lotus position. And about 6 months later, in November, Diem and his brother was assassinated.
In 1975, Saigon falls and the country is unified or forcibly amalgamated. And I think for a lot of the people we've talked to, that signals the beginning of a very rapid downward spiral, as it seems to have had, but because the communists take over.
Just members, high-ranking members of Communist Party in a special board can vote for the top leaders of the country. I say we don't vote, that's the truth, but it doesn't mean I'm thinking not good about the government here. I think everything is going the right way.
Ho Chi Minh, think about him is much like a nationalist rather than a communist. Only took communism as a way to liberate his country.
A guerrilla that had to walk the historical Ho Chi Minh Trail. What kind of sandal could be that durable? The nickname for this sandal is Uncle Ho sandal. Uncle Ho is for Ho Chi Minh. It's made from the used tire.
When I hear Ho Chi Minh, I think of the revolutionary, the socialist / communist, to some extent theorist, but more sort of strategic activist. And when I think about Uncle Ho, I think of sort of the benevolent nationalist leader. What would Ho Chi Minh say about this party?
It's not his idea. When he died, he actually wanted to be cremated.
Our experiences there definitely complicated our understandings of Vietnam in really productive ways.
A lot of people have tried to frame the question as like, how does Vietnam move forward in the global economy while maintaining its traditional Vietnamese culture? And that to me feels like the wrong question in just so many ways. And so I think instead the question is to ask, so you have this state of Vietnam with this specific history, right? And this specific present. That's really unique. Vietnam is such an oddball in so many really incredible ways. I think it's a really productive field of study. And so the question for me is instead, how does Vietnam reconfigure its social relations of development and production and agriculture and tourism and international relations in such a way that all the people that live there can be okay?
I like to listening to Taylor Swift.
No, she's not good.
But you never get anybody, baby, very great, not good. You have good heart.
Yeah, good
Strong
heart.
and
Not a
you
good
very
penis.
happy.